Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here on July 2nd with some post-fight thoughts on a fight that completed about 2 hours ago between Vladimir Klitschko and David Haye. I got this one wrong. No excuses. I thought that this was a competitive coin flip fight going in, either guy with a chance to win. And I thought the one thing that I thought I knew with certainty was that this fight would not go the distance. The fight went the distance. It had a stunning lack of action. A few things, though, stood out. Let's talk about them. Compare my notes with your notes. Just got this wrong. My base bet was the under 11.5. This one hurts. I drained whatever profits I had off the Ola Afalabi KO fight. And what can you say? I thought there were opportunities for both fighters. The things that surprised me in this fight, and it was an ambush fighter against a long jabber, understand that David Haye was never planning on winning this fight by decision. His game plan was to come in, was to throw ambush haymakers, catch Klitschko, stop Klitschko, get the titles. Right? Sometimes Haye will hit haymaker, then he'll jump in like he did against Enzo Maccarinelli to finish the job inside. Right? So Haye's whole game plan was to stay outside and then to jump in with strategic haymakers. It was never to engage in a sustained boxing match with his opponent. The person who I thought had the best day on the American telecast, and that's the only one I've seen so far, HBO, was Roy Jones. Roy Jones seemed to be the only person on the telecast who understood ambush fighting, right? It's very hard to fault Haye for a strategy where he's basically just staying out of harm's way, hoping to surprise Vladimir Klitschko, take advantage of a chin that has been stopped 3 times, right? And so when Larry Merchant was rambling on about how David Haye's not trying hard enough and David Haye couldn't have come here simply to get the knockout, let me just say that he not only doesn't understand ambush fighting, I'll even go further and say David Haye is not the first person to enter a championship fight, even at heavyweight, just looking for a knockout. I would encourage everyone to look at George Foreman against Michael Moore. The only difference is that Foreman tried to block Moore's punches from the inside in exchange with Moore, hoping that an opening appeared and he would be able to leap at it. David Haye has vastly superior foot speed to George Foreman. David Haye doesn't like to get hit. He was going to be outside Klitschko's jab, and that's exactly where he was. I didn't think Klitschko dictated with the jab at all in the fight, and he was going to jump in about 6 to 8 times during the match, hoping to catch Vladimir Klitschko. So what happened? How come this fight did not end inside of the distance? Right? The first thing is Vladimir Klitschko's defense. It actually surprised me. At least 4 times, David Haye came in with the right hand. Haye actually did go for the knockout. He wasn't there for the paycheck. He was literally there for the title, right? I feel that, granted, I heard David Haye had a broken toe. I don't think this fight was about broken toes. Understand, this is boxing. Guys spar to prepare for matches. Very few fighters, in fact, very few professional athletes are ever 100% healthy, right? I'm sure Vladimir Klitschko probably had some aches and pains going into this fight himself, right? Um, the first thing that surprised me was the fact that whenever David Haye came in with the right hand, at least 4 times in the fight, Vladimir Klitschko was literally able to block the shot, right? Haye would throw it, Klitschko would have his left, and Klitschko would literally raise the left up and block the shot from hitting his chin, right? Several times. Klitschko would, the punch was coming. Klitschko had Haye timed defensively. As Haye would leap in, Klitschko would raise his hand and block the shot. Understand, had a few more of those shots gotten in, the only one I saw that got in relatively cleanly was the punch that Haye hit Klitschko with in the 12th round. But keep in mind, by then, Haye wasn't running on a full tank of gas, right? Had Haye landed a few more of those shots, who knows what would have happened in the fight. Instead of us talking about Haye in a title fight not looking as good as he could have, we would have been talking about Haye with a dramatic knockout victory, right? I give Klitschko credit too for being able to use his shoulders. He rolled with punches. So a few times Haye threw the right hand and Klitschko would duck his head down and didn't give Haye angles where he could actually land with the punch. So at the end of a couple of these rounds, Haye throws a right hand, hoping to accomplish something, and Klitschko is able to roll away from the punch. He saw the punch coming. He was able to, duck his head in, not get hit with it. Also, Haye, and I'll give Haye credit. He actually didn't fight that bad. I thought HBO was a bit biased against him. Haye a few times bluffed right hands, came in with left hands. But there too, Klitschko seemed to know how to block the punch. In other words, Haye, ambush fighter, was throwing from long range. Klitschko had him timed on the way in. I thought that was a big story in this fight, right? Another story I thought in the fight was Haye's lack of volume. And this is structural. I'm not sure if there's anything that could be done. It's a stylistic thing. Understand, Haye didn't throw that many punches against Nikolai Valuev. Haye didn't throw that many punches against the gold medalist. Audley Harrison, right? Haye is not a high volume guy. He throws feints, not punches, right? As Roy Jones put it, he's throwing haymakers. He's not here to be a box maker, right? He's a haymaker. And so what that did is that actually allowed Vladimir Klitschko to pace himself. Klitschko was never in danger of running out of gas as he did in the first fight against Layman Brewster, right? In fact, that's the last championship level fight that Emanuel Stewart has lost as a heavyweight trainer, right? Because Haye wasn't throwing a lot of volume, Klitschko, who fights tight, a bit too tight, was never in danger of running out of gas, right? I would encourage everyone to take a look at the CompuBox numbers. You're going to see that Haye just didn't throw enough punches to tire Klitschko out. Let me move to the next point, too. Another thing that surprised me, I know before the fight I said that both guys lacked inside games, right? I made the point that the reason Klitschko engages in jab and grab is because when you get inside, there's nothing there. He's not turning and throwing body punches. He's not hitting you with hooks to the body. He's not coming in with close, quick uppercuts and things like that when you're inside. Doesn't have an inside game. Well, here, you saw that neither guy had an inside game. When Haye got inside, what we had was a bunch of flopping, right? These guys couldn't even box their way out of being inside. In fact, at one point they showed that Vladimir Klitschko had landed no body punches through something like the first 3 or 4 rounds. Think about it. All I'm saying is when you don't have a diversified attack, then the punches you do throw are easier to block, right? Neither guy seemed to know how to get inside or leverage being inside to accomplish anything at all. I think that's a bad indictment on both of these guys. I know that Klitschko has built quite a resume. He has 49 KOs. But if you're going to compare him to the best heavyweights in history, we're going to have to talk about the strengths and weaknesses, and quite frankly, the lack of an inside game, I think, is a pretty major weakness. Let me point out, too, that Evander Holyfield actually made the claim that his fights against Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis would be a tougher fight than fighting Vladimir Klitschko, because Lewis and Bowe, when you got inside, still threw power punches, right? What Holyfield was recommending was that David Haye, to win the fight, get inside and stay inside. The problem, though, is Haye, who is a gifted puncher, doesn't have that skill set. The only times I've seen David Haye inside are times when he hits a guy with a bomb, then the guy is disengaged like Enzo Maccarinelli. Then David Haye jumps inside. Then he'll stay inside because the other guy can't fight back. Here, he had a limited fighter on the inside in front of him. I know some of my comments are a bit controversial, but he had a limited fighter on the inside in front of him, and incredibly, he wasn't able to jump inside to really mount any type of an inside attack. In fact, it was worse than that. Whenever he was inside, we saw a lot of flopping. And the flopping's by design. I know some people in the crowd in which I saw the fight thought that Vladimir Klitschko was pushing Haye down. I believe what happened is what happened in the Andre Durrell Carl Froch fight. It's the absence of an inside game. The guys find themselves close to each other. David Haye is not going to punch his way out. He's not going to throw the kind of in-close uppercuts that Mike Tyson used to do, and he's not going to throw kidney punches and stuff like that like Bernard Hopkins does. Instead, his strategy to get from the inside, I thought, was to take a knee, and I thought he did that repeatedly in the fight. I thought that was a bit surprising. So, to sum up, I think this fight went the distance, quite frankly, because of better than expected defense by Vladimir Klitschko and really the absence of any inside game, low volume by David Haye. Let me also say this, too, about Klitschko. And this is a boxing channel. Let's discuss the heavyweight champion with most of the belts. David Haye at times, and Haye's a smaller man, David Haye at times had his hands down and his back up against the ropes. This happened early in the fight. Now, if what Emanuel Stewart says is true, that Vladimir Klitschko has such great footwork, second only to Manny Pacquiao, and that he moves better than people think and he's faster than people think, then you tell me, how was David Haye with his hands down up against the ropes able to survive? I'm still surprised. I mean, all I can say is, really, in terms of cutting off the ring and making a guy pay, um, you know, I really wonder what was going on there. Vladimir Klitschko even seemed to be hesitant to throw hooks. He seemed to be hesitant to throw a left hook. I understand his left lines up across from David Haye's right hand, and I understand that maybe he was afraid that Haye was going to come over a hook with the right hand. But understand, if David Haye is up on the ropes, and if he's an ambush fighter, and if he needs space to get off shots, and if he's not good up close, then don't you have him where you want him? I mean, watch the first 3 rounds again. When David Haye's up on the ropes, don't you have him where you want him? Do you think George Foreman or Lennox Lewis lets David Haye get off the ropes in that situation? I mean, what's the deal? Let me go one step further, too. Didn't look like Vladimir Klitschko was able to land his jab much early. How come we never saw a straight right hand lead? That's the problem with Vladimir Klitschko. If you have the foot speed to stay outside, he's limited. He needs to touch you with the jab before he does anything. I mean, I've heard of cautious fighters, but I thought this was ridiculous. I thought he could have been much more aggressive. I thought both fighters could have been much more aggressive. Maybe it's sour grapes because I was wrong on this one. Let me know what you think. Thanks.